Welcome, everyone. Sports writers from the Salem News are here. Here they are: Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino. Talking North Shore sports. Nick Kukuru is not here with us today from the Gloucester Times, and we are recording this on Monday prior to the Tuesday morning posting. Not a lot of sports happening on this Monday night, so I don't think we're going to miss too many results from Monday night with the storm and stuff that postponed a couple of things, but there wasn't a lot on the schedule anyway. So Phil, let me begin with hockey because you're fresh off the Prep BC High win over BC High on Sunday, and the Prep
Yeah,
is rolling, and they avenged that earlier season loss, the one loss they had to BC High earlier this year.
yeah, did so pretty convincingly, 6-1. Did it without one of their captains, top centers, Jimmy Ayers, who was out with a slight injury. He'll be back this week. But Cam Umla stepped up from the third line into his spot, scored 2 goals, assisted on another one. And I think it just goes to show how much depth St. John's Prep has. 4 really, really good lines, 6 excellent defensemen, a couple of really strong goaltenders. So they're now 9-1-1. They are going to be hosting Catholic Memorial on Wednesday at the Essex Sports Center. Catholic Memorial is 10-1. Their only loss was to St. John's Prep. These are the 2 clear top teams in the state meeting for a second time this season. This will probably determine the Catholic Conference champion. And I would think likely number 1 seed when the playoff pairings are all set in late February. So a lot riding on Wednesday's game for both teams. Interesting fact, I was looking at some numbers this morning, and this was the 350th game for this coaching staff at St. John's, which obviously is the head coach, Chris Hansen, but his 3 assistants who have been with him since game 1 back in 2007. That's Dave Hennessy, Scotty Hentosh, and Jeff Taché. So 350 games together. That's a pretty good ride for them. They've won 217 of those, 92 losses, 41 ties, of course, 2 state titles, several other state final appearances they've made, 2011, 2016, many more state semifinal or north final or whatnot. So they've been on a nice little roll, and certainly this year is as good as any that they've had at 9-1-1. But as I said, big test coming up Wednesday night against the CM team. They beat already 6-3, but will be out for the proverbial blood, as it were.
Hey, Phil, before you go on to talk about other hockey, those assistant coaches, are those names or grads from the old Salem High hockey program? Am I wrong on that or not?
No, Scott Hentosh was there. Jeff Hentosh was an assistant for Chris Hansen there.
Okay.
Dave is a prep guy. Dave's a few years older than me, prep graduate. And I don't believe he coached high school anywhere before he joined Coach Hansen's staff when he was hired in 2007.
Good. All right.
And Matt Williams and I were talking about this recently. Like it's rare that you have an entire staff staying together as long as they have. I mean, there are coaches and assistant coaches that coach together for a long time, maybe one of each. But to have 4 people like that stay together for a long time and have the success that they've had, it's pretty rare. I mean, there might be someone out there you can think of that's like a 4-man group that's been like that. I know back in the day, like the Ipswich football program was pretty solidified for a while when they had Jack Welch and Kenny Spellman and Glenn Foster and the Hoppings. But I don't know that it was like a 17-year period where all of them were together. I mean, I know Jack and Spell were together for a long time, but I'm not sure about everybody else there. So, Willie, when Niz has his staff, were there guys, I mean, not the entire staff maybe, but did he have a group of guys like Terry Lee or anyone like that were with him for like years and years and years? Like you could think of 4 or 5 guys.
I mean, I think just Terry for, talking 20 years, and maybe Scotty Vlasic was there for a very long time, maybe as long as these guys. I mean, he came on probably, he coached, probably from 1991 or so up until 2004. So that's what, 12, 13 years in that range. So, I mean, but they were guys that come and go. And, that's where I was sort of thinking about, that crew over there is like just the number of different coordinators that a lot of our different teams have had in football. The instability and especially in this day and age because of the pressures of working parents and trying to hold down a job, and there's just so little vacation time, and if you're not a teacher, it's so much harder to get time off to coach than it was
Yeah.
in the 80s and the 90s. You just don't see. And the only staff that's been together that I can think of is the Marblehead High football staff, right? And so
And even there have been some tweaks and changes and all.
no, but I mean, in general, the
Right.
continuity, and I think, I guess, if you want to draw a couple of parallels, the success, the sustained success that St. John's has had in hockey, and obviously they have a myriad of advantages that go into that, right? So, there is that. But two of the most consistent, successful programs that we have on the North Shore here are the Marblehead High football team and the prep hockey team. And you look at the stability that they have, not just at the head coach, but at the staff. There are coaches that I know that always insist upon, you shouldn't be coach of the year. It should be coaching staff of the year because nobody can do it by themselves, right? And I think those two staffs are a real paragon, at least in the bigger sports. I mean, certain sports you don't have as big a roster or whatever, but I think hockey and football are probably the two sports that have the largest rosters, and you throw baseball in that mix too, I guess. But
Lacrosse too, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, exactly. But it's really, the stability, not just in the head person, but in the staff it can be so crucial, and important. And especially this day and age where everybody, like I said, is getting pulled in 1,000 directions. These men and women aren't paid very well, right? So they're, nobody's in this for the money. And a lot of times, you have to step away for whatever reason. I mean, I'm just, the staff that Bobby Jackson had coaching the Marblehead boys when he was there, that was
Right.
intact. The same 3-4 guys for many
yeah.
years. And you saw the
Right. Tommy
success they had.
Colby and right. Tommy Colby and Mark Tarmy. That's right.
I mean, so anytime you can have a group of really trusted lieutenants, that's just so important, I think. And I think if you look at most successful programs, there's stability, not just, like I said, not to repeat myself, but not just with the head person, but with the people around him or her as well. And I guess while we're talking about it, we should shout out, those longtime JV people too. I mean, they don't get a lot of
That's true.
credit,
Think
but
about a guy like
not,
John Zimini, been coaching the freshmen forever.
right.
I mean, started at the old Don Bosco back in like the 80s, but he's been in the prep, 35 years or so. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, those people aren't often around on game day, and some of them are. They're varsity assistants, especially on the football side. But in some of these other sports, but there's no substitute for good player development. I think that's become a lost art in this day and age of AAU and travel ball, and so many people expecting to come in and start when they're a freshman. I think player development is so important, and if you can have a great JV coach or developer, that can take a kid when they're a freshman, maybe they're a little bit undersized, maybe they haven't spent their whole life playing the sport, they don't know all the different tricks and nuances, and if you can develop them into someone that can be a varsity contributor by the time they're a junior, just get them a job to help out the team somewhere, that's just so valuable. Really no substitute for that. And so those people, the sort of I don't want to say nameless, faceless people, but the behind the scenes workers at the sub varsity levels, we give you guys a podcast salute as well.
Phil, you mentioned
Okay.
Niz. I got to mention two names here, and I'm not being paid by the Salem alums, but I think, remember the Taché twins coaching with Niz for a few years? I don't think they were there for years and years, but they were there.
Sure. I remember the Jetsons too. The couple of twins, the Jetsons were around for quite some time.
Okay.
I mean, just thought of Dave Wilbur is a guy, a behind the scenes freshman coach guy that I just thought of, like, immense. You know what I mean? Like, what a great person.
Think of the coaching staff that he was on at Salem High before he was in Beverly. Kenny Perone's staff. I mean, that was a solid staff of guys who were there for a long time, between Dave and Al Giotti and Timmy Marculia. A lot of guys there. Yeah. I want to say one more thing in regard to the St. John's prep coaching staff. I'm reminded from time to time that when he was hired, now you have to remember, he was hired at St. John's. You know, they were looking for someone to come in for Bob Marinelli, who had been there for about a dozen years. And, you know, the job obviously drew a ton of interest. All kinds of people applied for it. And Christian Hansen was coming from Salem High, which he had led to great success when no one had ever even taken the team to the playoffs before. But still, I think everybody would say then and now that coaching at Salem High and making the jump up to St. John's Prep was a huge jump. And, you know, could he make the transition? How would it be? You know, da, 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 da. Well, there were people in the local press, no one here, thankfully, that derided the decision of hiring him. Oh, it should be so-and-so, or it should be this guy, it should be this famous player, you know, whatever, that kind of thing. And I'm often reminded of that, like, boy, this staff has really made those folks eat their words, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, they're really good. The other people
over maybe higher profile candidates at the time, but would not have been the right fix. I mean, hindsight being what it is, it might have been a short-term solution. It might have been like, oh, you know, not cut out for this kind of job or whatever. My hat is completely off to Jim O'Leary for that hiring of Christian, because it's not only taken the program to these great heights, and, you know, they coming off a state championship, they're certainly in the mix for another one, but it's stability, and it's, you know, having the program. They've never missed the playoffs. And I know everybody says, like, oh, it's St. John's, of course they don't mix the playoffs. Well, it's not that easy. You know, I mean, they're on a roll now, but there are years where they've been 9-7-7, or they've been 9-9-2, or whatever, you know, I mean, but they've never missed the playoffs. They always have great kids come in. These kids get better as they go along. They've had NHL draft picks. They've had NHL players. They've had tons of guys go on to do a PG year in school or play Division I colleges or major juniors, USHL, things like that. So I really think hat tip to Jimmy O'Leary for having the foresight not to listen to the noise and going with the best choice.
I think what we ought to do is hopscotch around. We got to get Nick Giannino in here a little bit, talk some basketball. We can always come back.
He
to
just
hockey.
has so much hockey knowledge that he doesn't want to overstep Willie and I talking about.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
you guys covered it all. Everything I was going to say, you nailed it. So
okay. Why don't we go
Are
over
you
to
sure
the
you don't want
review there, Basketball Jones? Go ahead.
I'm sure Nick may slide in a couple of hockey references here in a moment here, but Nick, you're back from the Garden from the weekend where Beverly High played and beat Everett. I'm totally not surprised they won, but I'm surprised at the score. You know, to be quite honest with you, I thought Everett was having a pretty good, you know. So that was a nice win for Beverly on a big venue, a big win. So maybe just share a note or two on that for us here.
Well, first and foremost, I think what Steve Gibbs has done to get this tournament going for the past invitational, I should say, it's not really a tournament, just a collection of games, but what he's done for the Lawson family, you know, in honor of Andrew James Lawson, that's who the invitational is named after. He was a Norwell High student athlete who had Down syndrome and unfortunately, tragically passed away after a couple-year battle with cancer. He was only 27 years old, I believe. But just to be able to run that at the Garden each year and get a different mix of teams coming in and to experience that, because it really is a really special, you know, experience for these kids to be able to get out on that Garden floor and play a meaningful game. And, you know, they got to see kind of behind the scenes, go back into the locker rooms, things like that. Just a really great day for all involved. And I think Steve Gibbs, you know, the Pingree boys basketball coach who founded this invitational 9 years back, has done a great job with that. And this year, you know, I'll get to Beverly, but there was some excellent competition. You know, the way Steve put it actually was he thought it was probably the most talent in the Boston Garden at the high school level since the McDonald's All-American game back in, I think it was 2000. And he wasn't wrong. They had, for those of you familiar with Ball is Life, it's a social media account. They cover basketball at all levels, a lot of pro stuff, but they'll do high school and college stuff and recruits and things like that. They were there, you know, highlighting some of the big name players. They had some marquee matchups towards the end of the day with, you know, high level recruits, guys going to Duke, Marquette, I could go on and on with the list of Division I programs that these kids are committed to. There was also a freshman that's, the top ranked freshman in the country, AJ DeBansta. He was playing for St. Sebastian's in the nightcap, and saw some highlights of that. He must have had 8 dunks in that game, 6'8" kid. So really high level competition, and Beverly was able to get in and play at 1:30, middle of the afternoon. It was a good take, great crowd. And like you said, Bill, Everett posed a real challenge. They're a Division I program. I know they lost, their top guy to prep school this year, but they still got some talent, and they made things difficult on the Panthers. Beverly, jetted out to an early lead, and then looked like they might run away with it, but Everett made a push. Their crowd was, really loud and getting into the action, and Beverly had to call a timeout. I think it was a 4-point game in the fourth quarter at one point, and they made one last run to put them away. So we talk about Beverly a lot on this podcast, but they're, one of the premier programs in the state. I feel comfortable saying that. Obviously, they haven't had the chance to beat a team like Lawrence, but they came really close against them. They played Catholic Memorial hard until the end, another top team in the state. So they're facing a really tough schedule. Now they're healthy. Rook Landman is back. He's a guy that was, supposed to be their starting point guard going into the season, and was battling a knee injury. It took him a little longer to get back from that than he had hoped. I think he missed the first 9 games, but he looks healthy, healthy enough at least. I guess he's still dealing with some knee pain and probably going to have to go and have another surgery after the season's over, but he's gotten it out, and he's been a great addition. Noe Diaz, a junior that didn't play last year, has really come into his own and been a huge boost for this team. He had 24 points at the Garden, was lighting it up from 3. And then obviously you got Ryder Frost and Dylan Crowley running the show. They've been super consistent, both high-level players. So Beverly, they're starting to find their identity. You beat a team like Everett. They're 8-4 now. They've beaten some good teams. Bill, you were at the game against Marblehead, who had beaten Beverly in the first game of the season and gave him trouble again the other night before the game at the Garden. And I think it got down to a 3-point game in the end, right? And I like Marblehead. I think they're an awesome team too, and could really make a run in the Division II tournament. Not sure what their ranking is at current state, but they've been giving teams trouble all year. Some of these really close games they've come out on the losing side of, but still plenty of season left to try and figure out how to close games like that. And I really like them. They got a ton of size. They got some good guards. So those two teams we're going to be talking a lot about, I think, this season. But Bill, maybe you want to just touch on that finish there in Marblehead?
Yeah, and Marblehead actually beat Beverly. Their one conference loss. So this was a huge game for Beverly to possibly wrap up the conference by beating Marblehead, thus giving Marblehead their 2 losses and having a head-to-head win against them as well. So whatever. No, I think you're right about Marblehead and boys basketball. And what's interesting is through that game, Beverly seemed like they were 7, 10, 11 points ahead throughout most of it. 12 points, maybe stuff like that. And Marblehead made a run. I think it was early in the third quarter. And they were to within 1. They didn't lead. And, after was like, maybe they led 4-2 or something like that, 5-3 early in the game. And that was it. And they never led again, Marblehead.
Yeah.
And then as you were alluding to, they Marblehead closed it down to within 3 at the end right at the end of the game in the final minute, and just couldn't come back all the way. To Beverly's credit, I'm sure on all of that. But anyways, you're right. Marblehead's going to be a team that's going to cause some real problems, I think, for opponents in the postseason. So
and
they're a
opposing
nice looking
coaches have
team.
said that. I talked to Matt Karakutis after the first time around, and he said, that's a team that's really going to surprise someone in Division II. So the NEC is top heavy this year. You got a team like Salem that can beat anyone on any given day. They beat Peabody in a really close game, and Peabody is another team that's been clicking, firing on all cylinders, beating a lot of good teams right now. They're 9-2, just 1 game away from getting into the tournament.
Yeah, how do you see that
Beverly
Peabody game going, Nick?
What's that?
How do you see that Beverly Peabody game going?
Well, they play very similar styles. I think it'll be a great matchup. Beverly isn't the biggest team, but they do have a little more size than Peabody. So I think maybe they can take advantage of that. I don't know if Peabody really has someone that's capable of guarding Ryder Frost one-on-one. They're going to have to throw some different looks at Frost. And Frost is capable of, finding the open teammate. But what Peabody does so well is they get out in transition. They got a ton of quick guards. AJ Forte has been playing out of his mind. He's really come into his own this year after, throwing together some big scoring performances last year. And when he gets hot, they start to roll. He did it against, who did I watch him play last week at home? Oh, geez, I can't even remember. Oh, Masco. Yeah, Masco. He got hot in the third quarter, hit like 3 threes in a row, another jumper, and that was kind of it. So he can go on those little runs, and I like them. I like Peabody a lot. That's gonna be a great matchup against Beverly. Like I said, I think similar styles. They both like to push the pace. They both like to, put pressure on the ball and throw in full court presses, traps, things like that, and try to get out in transition. So that could be a fast-paced game.
And that will be Friday night in Beverly, Peabody at Beverly, Friday night, 7.
Is Marblehead in the done? I'm trying to look at the standings here on Max Preps, but I think it's wrong because they have a 6-4 split.
Yeah, you can't find the NEC standings anywhere. It's like, it's terrible.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Beverly has 1 conference loss. Salem, Peabody, and Marblehead all have 2. So, I mean, that's really bunched up.
Right.
And of course, if, the way Beverly's getting healthy now, and they seem like they're kind of pulling away from the pack a little bit. But if somebody else can hang a second conference loss on them, the standings are gonna bunch up, and it's gonna be a race down the stretch, and that should really help everybody. Power ranking wise. I mean, again, we talk about it every week. I feel like Beverly and Peabody are sort of behind the 8 ball a little bit because they're in Division I, and there's so many good Division I basketball teams. Whereas
right.
Marblehead and Salem are in D2, so they have a little bit more breathing room there. But I think while I'm looking at these standings here, we'd be remiss not to shout out Gloucester. I mean, even though Nick's not here, the Cape Ann people are still watching, and they're what, 7-3. They seem like they're kind of playing pretty good. You got to see them against Beverly, and they led them for almost the whole day. I mean, I didn't think that was.
They didn't just lead them. They were up 20 points against Beverly. Beverly really had to work for that one, come back and close it out down the stretch. But Gloucester's got some good players too. I was impressed by them, and when they're hitting their shots, they can be tough to beat.
According to this, Saugus is 9-3, and since everything on the podcast has to go back to the prep hockey team one way or the other, their assistant coach was a hockey player at the prep, and all of a sudden he's got the basketball team rolling. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a team that's
what that's all
about.
Go Sage them.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Matt, because Beverly is at Saugus Tuesday night, I believe, and that would be at the beginning of the year, it's saying, well, that's not going to be a great game, but it could be a decent. That's going to be a good game Tuesday night.
That's
over at Saugus. Yeah,
that's a team that's come a long way. They haven't had a good season, and at least since I've been at the Salem News, they've
No, that staff. That staff took over when the poor fellow whose name escapes me, but he passed away just before the season. At Bertrand, I believe is his name, and was a figure there. And that staff that includes our buddy Matty McDonald, the prep hockey player, took over, and they've built a heck of a thing over there.
Yeah.
And certainly when they get in the tournament,
this is what you want, though, as a fan, right? And as coaches, and you want the balance in the Northeastern Conference. You look at a few years ago with Lynn English kind of just, far and away the best team, and they probably would be the best team if they were still in the NEC. But now you got Beverly, Peabody, Marblehead, Salem, like we mentioned, Saugus. So some really good games, some really good competition, and it's just good for the league.
Totally agree. Hey, Matt Williams, let's go to you and just get a quick update on girls hockey. We can also bounce back, get some girls hoops in very quickly here, but watching the clock, we gotta move it along here.
Well, Winthrop continues to roll. I mean, 30 games in the regular season, unbeaten, 27 or 28 now in the Northeastern League. They took care of business against Beverly on Saturday, a relatively close game, but they pulled away at the end, ended up winning it 4-1. They've now flip-flopped in the power rankings. They've passed Peabody at 4-5. I think they're going to kind of jockey for position there all season long, and that's really all we have our eyes on. Peabody and Beverly are going to play each other on Saturday night at the Bork Arena, and then a week from Wednesday, so we'll talk about it more next week, is going to be the big rematch between Peabody and Winthrop, and that's really everything that's going on on the girls hockey side of things. Our other teams continue to play well. Bishop Fenwick had a couple of tight losses, but they're still in great shape in the power rankings. Not much for them to be concerned with there besides just making sure that they're playing good hockey and whatnot. So kind of business as usual on the girls' side. I think Beverly has lost 3 out of its last 4 now, so their record has taken a little bit of a hit against some of the good teams, but I still like the way they're playing. That's not like entirely unexpected, and I think they'll be better off for having playing the tough teams, even though the record might not be as nice. They're still way ahead of where they were last year and still way in tournament position. So that's really at the end of the day, what's going to end up counting is how you're playing. You'd rather be taking a couple losses against tough teams than continuing to pile up the goals against the teams that don't test you as much. Especially in this new format.
I'll do a little girls basketball shout out. I know the Peabody girls keep rolling along here. They beat Masco Friday night for the second time this year. First time was a very close game, and they're playing host to Danvers Tuesday night. So tonight, when people hear this, but
they've got Fenwick on Wednesday. That's a huge game for them. Really a must win if they want to rocket up the power rankings, and it's going to be fascinating because Peabody has so much experience at the guard position, and Fenwick is so young.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Peabody, has any height to deal with Cecilia Kay. I mean, they have Logan Lemazny, but Cecilia's bigger than her, I think, and that's going to be really an MVP matchup. I mean, I'm sure that the CCL MVP will be one of the St. Mary's girls, but if it's not, it's going to be Cecilia Kay, and Logan's going to be a 2-time NEC MVP by the end of this year. So that's going to be one heck of a matchup there to watch. I mean, again, Peabody's got the experience advantage, at almost every position except for the 4-5 where Kay is, and you just wonder if that experience and those quickness in the guards is going to be what carries the day, or if Fenwick's relative strength of schedule is going to give them a little bit of a boost. But just again, power ranking wise, I mean, if Peabody wants to get a home game or really do anything in the tournament, that this is a game that they really got to go get.
It's funny that
just looked that
Willie,
up.
The youth of Bishop Fenwick. I mean, Gene DePlasso will be in Tuesday's newspaper and online, was writing about some of the standout freshmen in the area this year. And there's 3 for Bishop Fenwick that have played really, really well. I mean, Celia Nelson has been terrific for the Crusaders so far. A couple of girls from Beverly, Caitlin Boy and Anna Fertinani. Is that right? Am I pronouncing that right? Fertinani. They've all been in the starting lineup, played 20+ minutes a game, talented, surrounding Kay with a good cast of ball players around her. Yeah, and Willie, you made a great point. I mean, she's our reigning player of the year for the Salem News. She's averaging well over a double-double in both categories. She's coming up on 1,000 career points, but doesn't have the experience that the Peabody girls do around them.
Well, I don't even remember. It might have been Logan who the player of the year was, but either way, they both.
No, it's no, I think it was Celia last year for us.
I don't remember, but I mean, they both phenomenal, and I'm sure the voting will come down to the 2 of them again this year. And it's just interesting, and just the guards. They have so much experience in the guards. If they want to press, are they going to be able to handle it? And the tallest girl on the team might be the freshman Lizzie Betancourt. I think Lizzie might be a hair taller than Logan. So it'd be interesting to see if she goes out there to try to guard, the big kid. Or, I mean, Cecilia's so quick that it's not, she's not, she can shoot from anywhere anyway. It's not like she's going to be backing you down like Shaquille O'Neal or anything. So you might need quickness to guard her more than height. But it's just sort of interesting that the one kid that maybe has the sheer size to guard her just so happens to be a freshman, as we're talking about the different ages of the different kids.
No, and for accuracy's sake, I just looked it up. It was Kay that was the player of the year last year. But okay. I remember, we discussed that between her and Logan, and it was a close vote there.
So and you talk about just quickly, you talk about, potential player of the year matchups, that Frost versus Forte. I mean, those are 2 kids from Peabody and Beverly that could very well win the NEC MVP. So that's going to be a fun matchup there.
So I have that Fenwick game at Peabody Wednesday night at 7. So that's what I'm seeing on the NEC schedule here. So that'll be a great one. Another
And
game.
Gene will be there.
So I know on Tuesday night, when people will hear this tonight, we talk about that second tier of teams, if you will. You got Peabody, maybe Masco on the girls' side in basketball, but you got Saugus playing at Beverly on Tuesday night. So that should be a great game with two coaches that have been in the conference for quite a while. Seth Stanchel of Beverly and Mark Surrender from Saugus High School. I think Saugus is 7-3 right now, or 7-4. So they're having a very good year themselves. So there you go, gentlemen. I think we're got a couple of minutes left here, so I'll leave it open if you guys want to. I know we kind of discussed track. Track's kind of coming to a head, in the next few weeks or so. There's a lot of stuff going on, but are there any loose ends that we should discuss before we wrap it up this week?
Bill, before we dive into the track, just quickly, I wanted to give a shout out to Pingree girls basketball player Bella Vaz.
Oh,
she had a career high 43 points, actually a program record.
Yeah.
Points. And she did it only in 3 quarters. I watched the highlights on Twitter. She could not miss. I mean, I'm sure they only showed the shots that she made, but she must have had close to 10 3-pointers, if not more. Just lights out performance by her. And again, she did it in 3 quarters. So pretty impressive stuff for her over at Pingree.
I mean, just on the North Shore, I can't think of very many 40-point girls games. I mean, I could think of only I could think of 2. Morgan Bavardi did it once, and Jen Tamilio back in like 2002 for Salem. Those are.
I think Jen had like 51.
Yeah, I think that's like the area record. I mean, that's a 40-point game for girls is extremely rare. That's
and,
awesome.
And if they weren't up by 40 points, she would have played in the 4th too, and had a chance to keep it going. But in any case,
I want to say that
points is pretty
Jennifer
impressive.
Webster, Willie, back in the day had 40 for Peabody in a game.
Oh, probably. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Most likely way back when.
We should mention the Beverly High boys track team. First Northeastern Conference championship for the indoor boys in 31 years. I mean, that's one that certainly in recent times has been dominated by Peabody since they joined the Northeastern Conference. Before that, you're probably talking Danvers had a great run. Gloucester obviously had some spectacular teams for a while there. But Beverly had not won a title since 1992. So Sean Dunleavy, rightfully so, the head coach, was all pumped up last night telling me about the great win that his boys had. And, a lot of different guys that chipped in too. Leo Sheriff, I know, he won the the high jump. He won with 6 feet, and he finished second at 55 hurdles. So he had a real strong showing for them. Ryan Dunleavy, coach's son, was second in the 600. Misha Craigan was also second in the 1,000, I want to say. Lucas Tremblay was another second place finish in the shot put, over 40 feet there for him. Casey McGrath, I think, was third in the shot put. Colin Burns was tied for 4th. Devin Smalls, who was a captain on the football team, was second in the dash, with Shane Barker 4th. Riley McGoldrick was 3rd in the 2-mile. Timmy Harrington 4th in the hurdles. I think the 800 relay team also did really well, finishing 2nd. So they just had a lot of guys do really, really well for them, coming up at big times and finishing undefeated. And I believe the Beverly girls also won another title. Was it Marblehead beat Peabody, Willie? Is that right? So they think Beverly and Peabody tied with identical 8-1 records this winter.
That's accurate. Yeah. I mean, obviously, kind of a issue there with the conference insisting on having dual meets on the same day as the state relays, sort of causing that.
Now, why was that? Did you ever get?
It really depends who you ask. A lot of unhappy people about this. The conference had the opportunity to run at the New Balance track, which is cool. But I guess whoever set that up didn't check the schedule to see when the state relays were. And, you put teams in a position of having to choose between trying to win a dual meet and trying to win a state championship. I mean, that's kind of a difficult spot. It's sort of like college hockey. Like, do you want to win the Bean Pod or do you want to win the national title?
We got 20 seconds, Bill. Go ahead. It's
All right,
yours.
so PBD chose to have a lot of its girls participate in the relays and didn't have its full team against Marblehead. Gotcha.
They won 5 state titles over there, so I guess it was worth it,
Yeah.
But
But anyway, congratulations
nonetheless,
to the Beverly boys and girls track teams.
You got it.